In Ghana, we are very blessed by Allah. There is so much religious tolerance amongst us. It is a priceless gift that Allah has given us. The peace and stability is got as one of its key pillars, the religious tolerance that we have in Ghana. So we can all get together and celebrate and respect other faiths in their worship. So therefore, I would like us all together to resist any attempts from any quarters to whip up sentiments of one religion against another. That is not how we solve problems, by whipping up sentiment. We solve problems by dialoguing, by talking to each other peacefully and resolving problems. So Ghana, let us keep it as peaceful as Allah has given it to us. Amir, Chairman, the convention is an opportunity to renew relationships with one another. It is the hope of the organizers that you will return to your various homes better Muslims and citizens, strong in values that enable you to contribute much more positively towards national development. Emir Chairman, the theme for this year's convention, which is corruption, a threat to national development, peace, and security, is worthy of commendation. For government, it underscores the concern that various segments of the population, including religious bodies, have expressed about the cost of corruption, especially at a time when the perception of corruption in the country, as indicated by various surveys, appears to be high. It is therefore very important that civil society and religious groups continue to speak and generate an awareness of this canker in our society, because it is an ongoing, the fight against corruption is an ongoing fight that all of us must be involved in. When we came into office, we looked at the landscape of the issue of corruption and said, what forms does corruption really take in this country? We tend to talk about corruption at a very macro perspective, the generalized view of corruption. But corruption has micro foundations. And it is the micro foundations that if you don't deal with the micro foundations, then you cannot deal at the macro level of corruption. And so we looked at the landscape of this canker called corruption. And what does it really involve? What forms does it take? It took paying bribes, for example, to get a driver's license through Goro Boys at the DVLA. Pay bribes to get a passport through Goro Boys at the passport office. Paying bribes to customs officers at the ports to clear your goods. You had mounting amounts of judgment debts. You had the resort to sole sourcing as the procurement method of choice. And of course, when sole sourcing is the procurement method of choice, you result in largely inflated contract prices. Also, we saw that there was inadequate funding for anti-corruption agencies. We had not, after 20 years or so, passed the right to information law. And there was also an absence of the legal backing to a beneficial ownership assets register. There was no law on witness protection. You also had corruption manifesting itself in the courts, in the judiciary. You had cases of missing dockets. You have a case and suddenly the docket goes missing. We also had corruption in the judiciary in the context of the distribution of cases. People went to try to solicit particular judges to say, send my case to this judge because I know maybe the judge will be more favorable to me. So these are some of the micro foundations of corruption. And so government since 2017 has been engaged in putting together an architecture that will help us fight corruption. And this architecture is built on 3 pillars that we have undertaken so far, and we're going to reinforce these pillars. And what are these 3 pillars? First is the legal framework. The laws have to be there, not only to be there, but they have to be enforced. The second is the institutions, strengthening the institutions that fight corruption. If you don't resource the institutions, how do you expect them to fight corruption? And third is to deal with the systems that enable corruption. If you don't have transparent systems, then you will allow corruption to get under the radar and thrive. When you have transparency, when you have openness, corruption finds it very difficult to survive. And so we have been looking at dealing with the issue of corruption from the point of view of these 3 pillars. Let us take the laws, for example. What have we done with the legal framework since we've been in office in 2017? We've passed the Witness Protection Act in 2018, Act 959, that gives protection to witnesses who testify against corruption. We have passed the law to establish, not only the law, but we have established the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act. We've established that. Of course, the work is ongoing. I know people are impatient, but I have every confidence in the work that the Office of the Special Prosecutor is doing, and I'm sure in good time, Ghanaians would hear from him. We've also passed the Right to Information Act. This act was there for almost 20 years under consideration. And thanks to the work by civil society and Parliament and the focus of government on this act has been passed, which is Act 989. Fourthly, we have passed into law the Companies Act 2019, a very landmark act, which really helps us in our fight for against corruption, because it provides a framework for enacting a beneficial ownership register so that we can look at assets and know who the beneficial owners are. Of course, recently we've passed the vigilantism bill into law, which is very, very important, as Malvi was talking to us about the nature of corruption in political activity. And we have now passed the law essentially dealing with political vigilantism. Going beyond the laws, Amir Chairman, looking at budgetary allocations, government has increased the budgetary allocations to all accountability institutions of state, including Parliament of Ghana, the Judiciary, SHRAJ, IOCO, the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, Auditor General, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and the Ghana Police Service. The operational budget of SHRAJ, for example, has increased from 1.8 million Ghana cedis in 2016 to 5 million Ghana cedis in 2019. And in 2020, the allocation is 12.2 million Ghana cedis. So we're moving from 1.8 million to 12.2 for Shraj. And its overall budget, that's just for the operational budget, but the overall budget for Shraj has increased from 16.8 million in 2016 to 40 million in 2020. And all the other accountability institutions have received increases between 25% and 34% between 2017 and 2019. To further boost the fight against corruption, deficits in logistics and personnel of law enforcement agencies, especially the Ghana Police Service and other accountability institutions, are being addressed. Police, for example, have received a total of 667 vehicles just in the last 3 years. 667 vehicles. Now, Emir Chairman, the government's implementation, this is where I talk about systems. You have the laws, you have the laws, you have the budgetary allocation. But what about the systems? How can we put in place systems that ab initio discourage corruption? You know, because we're always looking at catching corruption after it happens. What about systems that actually prevents corruption so that it does not happen? The government's implementation of a digitization agenda is actually disrupting corruption in the public sector. If you look at what used to happen in the DVLA to get a driver's license, you inevitably had to go and deal with a Goro boy, pay a bribe. But today, through digitization, we have introduced a digital driver's license and vehicle registration at the DVLA. And so the online applications and the automation has essentially eliminated the Goro boy phenomenon in the DVLA. In fact, I'm so proud of what is taking place in the DVLA. I always tease the British High Commissioner that our DVLA is more efficient than their DVLA in the UK because of the systems, and we have a good laugh about it. But the serious fact is that we used to have a lot of bribery and corruption, but by digitization and automation, we have virtually eliminated that at the DVLA. And it's the same that you see going on at the National Insurance Commission. And what we have now done, and which will start this year, this month actually, we have now integrated the DVLA database with the National Insurance database. Before, there were a lot of fake registrations in the system and fake insurance. People will pay bribes to get fake tickets, insurance, and fake registration certificates. But with digitization, we have now linked the databases. So starting this month, a policeman is going to be able to look at the car number plate, put that in their mobile phone, and immediately the policeman will be able to tell whether this car is properly registered or whether it is got insurance. They are not going to look at your fake certificate or whatever. They will know immediately that you have insurance or you don't have, or your car is properly registered or it's not registered. And that will help us practically deal with the corruption that happens in that. In addition to this, if you go to the passport office today, the corruption that used to again take place as far as the process of getting a passport has virtually been eliminated. The Goro boys are no longer there. The process is online, it's automated. You pay your fees and submit your documents, and then the process goes. We also moved very quickly, Amir Chairman, to the ports to look at the processes of clearing goods at the ports and how we could automate those processes and eliminate corruption. And this is why we entered into the paperless port agenda. And we have automated the port. There used to be a place in the port called the long room. It was a very long room. and importers had to go from place to place. We looked at all the processes. We said, this is not necessary. We eliminated it. We could do everything online. We have streamlined inspections. Before, 17 different agencies had to inspect one container. Now only 3 agencies have to do that inspection. And this has really, that process of automation and going paperless at the ports has virtually eliminated a lot of corruption that is taking place at the ports. And the process of clearing goods has also been streamlined, and you are having a much quicker turnaround. We also looked at the national health insurance. It used to be the case that to renew your national health insurance, especially in many of the districts, our mothers and fathers, in fact, largely our mothers, had to go and sleep overnight, sometimes for 2 or 3 days, to get renewal of the national health insurance card. Today, we have automated the process with the introduction of a mobile application. And that mobile application means that you can sit in your home and renew your national health insurance by just paying the necessary fee, and it is done instantaneously. And so you are seeing a huge number of renewals by people of their national health insurance without going to the district office. You just dial *929# and then you renew your national health insurance. And that has eliminated the corruption that used to be associated with national health insurance renewal. We've also implemented the mobile money interoperability project, and this is very, very important. And this because it allows government services to be accessed and paid for electronically through, for example, this quarter, we will begin the launch of what we call the Dot Gov Platform. It is a portal where we are going to put all government services. So if you need a service, even if it is electricity, or you need to pay a tax, or you need to get a permit, you no longer need to go to that particular office. You can apply for it at ghana.gov online, pay your fee, and then you will receive your particular permit. We want to essentially reduce human interference in the interaction between the citizens and government, and automate that process. So Ghana.gov is one of the platforms that you will see being launched by the grace of God, inshallah, this quarter, and it will help us deal with corruption. We have begun also a major project which will be finished before the first half of this year, which is the National ID Project, which is one of the most important reforms that is taking place in Ghana. Every citizen, every resident is going to be given a unique ID. The process has started. It's currently in Ashanti. It will end up again in Greater Accra. And after it is complete around February, March, every district will have an office so that anybody who has not yet registered can go to that office to register. But we know that next year, by the grace of God, we will, not next year, we're already in 2020. This year, by the grace of God, before the June of this year, everybody who has to have or needs to have, because everybody must have a national ID card, and that system will now be complete. It will be phenomenal because you can no longer hide. Everybody, there is no informality, there's no opaqueness. We will see everybody. We will know whether you have filed your taxes or you haven't filed your taxes. We will know. And one of the beautiful things about the National ID Register is that after this register is done this year, we will no longer have any argument about a voters register anymore, because the national ID will become our voters register. Nobody will any longer have to go and register for voter registration, because when it's time for voting, EC can just extract everybody who is above 18 from the national ID database. They are already registered and they will go and vote. So it will save us money involved in these, election year registrations, which is very, very expensive. But for us, inshallah, this is the last time that sort of thing is going to take place, because with the completion of the national ID database, we will have in situ a voters register and all other things. With that also, NHIS is no longer going to be issuing NHIS cards, because the national ID card will also act as your NHIS card. We are introducing digitization at the land registry, because a lot of corruption takes place at the Lands Commission. All of you are aware of the corruption. You cannot even find your land certificates, and they can change and title and all of that. But we have begun a process to digitize all land registration so that we can check online, whether you are in Ghana or abroad, you can check title to any land and know this land actually belongs to this person or does not belong to this person. And that is going to be a major, significant breakthrough for Ghana, which we are working on currently. We have also digitized the Registrar General's Department, so obtaining a business certificate is now online, and so you can provide your documents online, and the registration will be done. You make your payments online, and it is a smooth process. Even the area of premix for the fisher folks and fertilizer, we are going to extend digitization to it, because it's also an area that there have been a lot of complaints, and we think that automation and digitization can allow us to directly provide the premix to the fisher folks, also similar with fertilizer, but it is a program that is ongoing. We are working on it, and we will try to get it done. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also looking at the justice system. The Chief Justice has been very cooperative in the justice system. With the help of USAID, we are introducing digitization into our courts. And not only we have introduced digitization into our courts. And the e-justice program, which is essentially digitizing all our court records, will be operational countrywide this year. This year, that program where we have digital records. So you will no longer have a case where a file is missing or cannot be found, because it can be found, it is there digitally, and it can easily be extracted, and lawyers can have access to it. The processes of filing cases will be electronic and so on. And there's a case tracking system attached to it, so you can find out, your lawyer can find out at any stage where is the case, what is the status of this case. That is the case tracking system, and this starts early this year. We also have a third component of this e-justice program, which is the electronic case distribution system. I had said that there was a situation where people were lobbying to have their cases heard by particular judges. And with the electronic case distribution system, it is automatically done. So it is electronically done, so no one can go and lobby for the case to be given to a particular judge. So it is a major, major reform in our justice system. The automation, the digitization is dealing directly with corruption in the justice system. Procurement. There's one issue in terms of procurement that I'll bring to your attention. Public Procurement Authority has implemented the e-procurement system, and we have less sole sourcing taking place in Ghana. And the due diligence of the Bank of Ghana resulted in the cancellation of the $1.2 billion contract for mobile money interoperability. When we came into office, a contract had been issued to do mobile money interoperability for $1.2 billion. We looked at this, the Bank of Ghana did its due diligence and realized that it was way overinflated, and the processes for the award of the contract did not actually meet the standard. I gave the instruction that we can do exactly what they were trying to do in Ghana within our own resources. And Bank of Ghana proceeded, and by the grace of Allah, the contract that was supposed to cost $1.2 billion was done for $4.5 million. Less than $5 million. The contract for $1.2 billion was now executed for $4.5 million. And this is a major saving of over $1 billion just in one contract. So we can see a major focus that we are having on these overinflated contracts, and the due diligence of the Bank of Ghana in this case was very helpful. We have also changed the opaque allocation of our oil blocks to a more transparent allocation of oil blocks, and this has really brought a lot of transparency in the oil sector. 67 million Ghana cedis has been recovered from disallowances and surcharges through the Auditor General's office, and the EOCO has also recovered 51 million Ghana cedis of taxes owed by the state to the state by some private companies and institutions. You've seen that the previously pervasive phenomenon of judgment debts has also been drastically reduced. And the Attorney General is also prosecuting a number of people, over 20 people from the past regime are currently being prosecuted for corruption. And I am sure when all is said and done, you will probably see more coming. Some of the notable prosecutions are the Republic versus Stephen Oponi, Republic versus Eugene Bonny and 4 others, Republic versus Ernest Thompson, Republic versus Sedina Tamaklo, and so on. We will see a lot more coming in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, in the past, the Auditor General's reports were completed 2, 3, or more years after the end of the financial year to which they are related. This has changed. The Auditor General's reports for the year 2016 were all submitted to Parliament between July and October 2017. And for the first time, 4 reports of the Auditor General for the financial year ended 31st December 2017 were released by June 2018. And so this is continuing in 2018 and no doubt will continue in 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the things that government has been doing to deal with this canker of corruption. As I said, we are looking at the laws, we are looking at strengthening the institutions that fight corruption, and we are looking at the systems, the automation that will prevent corruption. We have not completed the fight against corruption, but we have made a major change in this fight against corruption. All the things we are doing are going to bear fruit. The Right to Information Act will start working this year. The special prosecutor will come into force. We have done things that we have been trying to do in this country since independence and have not been able to do. But we have begun the process. And so, whilst we haven't completed it, we know that if we stay the course and we put in place the systems, we will deal with it. It is incumbent upon all of us to rise and join the fight. Government is doing its part and will continue to do its part. Let us all rise and join the fight. And this is why I said I would like to hear more from civil society. I would like to hear more from religious bodies about corruption. Raise up your voices. Let us be heard, and let everybody know that corruption hurts this country, takes away resources from the poor, and let us all come together to fight it. It is in our children's interest and in the interest of the future of Ghana. Thank you very much for your attention. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.